I've just done a video on people pleasing, and I was just thinking, would it be helpful to actually think about what's the opposite of people pleasing? And really, and again, in the psychoeducation world, it would be self-compassion, that you would actually be able to put your own needs ahead of someone else's, or standing side by side with someone else's. It doesn't have to always be about kind of being first, or being right, or those things. It's just about sort of compassion. So most of the time we've got the ability to have compassion for other people, and certainly we've got compassion for animals. Um, and but when it comes to ourselves, that becomes much more problematic. It feels like we don't have a right for that. And so what would be examples of self-compassion? And that is the way in which you actually speak to yourself. So when you speak to yourself, if you do it, like in the past, I've said in other videos, if you make a mistake, you've made a mistake. You don't need to actually reprimand yourself again, again, again. And also, your critic comes up with the worst possible names that it can come up with to describe you. You're not an idiot. You're not a complete fool. You're not this. We do that. We amplify that negative stuff, and that is really insidious. It's really difficult for us to actually climb out of that, because we come to believe it. And we've probably had people in our lives who have talked to us like that, and so when we adopt that way of speaking to ourselves, it's definitely worth noticing, and then actually letting yourself off the hook, being able to say to yourself, actually, I just made a mistake. I'm not gonna do that again, but I'm gonna rectify what's happened. I've spilt the milk, so what? So becoming kinder to yourself, because when we do that, we are not also in the punishment zone. Because if your self-critic is working overtime, which most of us have got a self-critic who's really busy, it's really helpful if you actually just lay them to rest. Just say, actually, I don't need to criticize myself for that. I made a mistake. Or because if you don't, the critic then just sort of makes a decision that it's going to, you have to be punished for that. So you're on a kind of loop, a punishment loop, which is really, really unhelpful. So paying attention to that's really a good thing to do for psychoeducation. The other thing is, when I can hear in people's language when they are unable to have kind of self-kindness. And so one of the things that I have been doing with patients recently is to use your non-dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, you would use your left hand to brush your teeth in the morning, and look straight, eyeball yourself in the mirror, and say something kind to yourself whilst you're brushing your teeth. Now, we Google it. It's really interesting, because the brain, we now know that the brain has neuroplasticity, and that means it can build new neural pathways, and those new neural pathways are fabulous. And if we can do that in the positive. So instead of you saying, I'm an idiot, or whatever your version is, and we've all got our own voices, and words for that. If you can actually step back from that and do this non-dominant hand toothbrushing exercise for 30 days, you will begin to be able to say kind things to yourself. Now, for many Scots, it would be a stretch to be able to say, I love you, I love you, I love you in the mirror. Oh, unbelievably difficult. So, but if you can start down the road from that, which is, I'm not going to harm you today, or I'm not going to criticize you today. Speak to your younger self in that mirror whilst doing the non-dominant toothbrushing. So that's one thing to do. And all these things are worth giving them a go. You've got nothing to lose, because you're going to brush your teeth anyway. So do that. The other thing is that when I find this really hilarious actually, that if I say to somebody, when was the last time you had a bath in the afternoon? I can feel them withdrawing from me and their eyebrows raising into their hairline, because it is such an alien concept for them to actually be kind to themselves. And in the middle of the day, oh my God, that is so never going to happen. So that can be a homework exercise, is to actually think about how difficult it is for you to actually wrap your head around having a bath in the afternoon, um, and and whether or not you can have a bath with candles and a wee glass of wine in the afternoon, or whatever your tipple is. Being kind to yourself, if you start that, you'll actually be able to ease your anxiety as well, because all of this stuff is about low mood, anxiety, and all of these little videos that I'm doing are addressing things that actually build that situation inside you, and bit by bit we can unpack that. So anyway, have a go at the non-dominant and toothbrushing, and have a wee bath in the afternoon.